Missing sisters, the disappearance of Katherine and Sheila Lyon, 1975. 10-year-old Katherine Lyon went to visit her neighbor on Pliers Mill Road, the same street where she lived with her family in Kensington, Maryland. Frances Kuster was the mother of 2 young daughters, and Kate, as she was known to family and friends, would occasionally come over and take toddler Kathy to nearby Homewood Park. On March 24, 1975, she wanted to see baby Judy, however, who was only a week old. Since the newborn was asleep, Kuster suggested that Kate stop by the next day. She would make sure that the baby was awake for the visit. The next morning, radio personality and disc jockey John Lyon returned home at 6:30 a.m. after working the night shift at Mal-Am in Bethesda. John was tired and climbed quietly into bed without waking his wife, Mary, and their 4 children. The kids were on vacation anyway that week for their spring break. While he slept, the rest of the household woke up at about 10 a.m. and had breakfast. Mary was concerned that the house should remain quiet to give her husband time to sleep. It was a warm, sunny day, and her 2 sons, 15-year-old Jay and 9-year-old Joe, headed to the schoolyard to shoot hoops. Sheila, 12, and Kate decided to go to the Wheaton Plaza to see the mall's Easter exhibits and eat lunch at the Orange Bowl restaurant. They were days away from their 13th and 11th birthdays, and their parents planned to take them out for dinner the following weekend. Mary believed that they would be safe. It was a time when children wandered the neighborhood without any problems, and families watched out for one another. The girls left the house between 11 a.m. and noon with barely $4 between them, but it was enough to buy pizza at the Orange Bowl restaurant and browse through the mall shops. Their mother told them to be home by 4 p.m. They took a half-mile shortcut by following a footpath through some woods and side streets over to Drum Avenue and Faulkner Place to the plaza at the corner of University Boulevard and Veers Mills Road. At the insistence of a friend, Mary Lyon went bowling. The house was quiet when John Lyon woke up at noon. He did some work in the yard of their small white stucco house and then picked up his wife at the bowling alley in mid-afternoon. After they drove home, he lay down for a nap. The boys returned and Jay showed off the new kite he had bought at Wheaton Plaza that afternoon. He had spotted his sisters there while he was shopping. Kuster phoned Mary to find out when Kate would be coming over. She had made sure to have Judy awake, but Kate had not turned up. Mary said that they were at the Wheaton Plaza and she expected them home any minute, but by 5:45 p.m. there was no sign of Sheila and Kate. Mary was annoyed, because the girls knew that they were supposed to be home for dinner. She began frying up some chicken and waited for her daughters. When the girls still had not returned by 7 p.m., the Lyons called police. The search for the 2 girls began immediately. The juvenile aid unit initially thought that Kate and Sheila might have run away, but they quickly dismissed the idea. The girls were younger than most runaways and they had not quarreled with their parents or their brothers before they disappeared. They also had taken very little money with them. The community was optimistic that the girls would be found. At the time, many neighborhood children played outside with little parental supervision. When the photo of Sheila for her yearbook at Newport Mill Middle School became available, Principal Bob Redmond brought it to her mother. Police learned from witnesses that the girls were standing outside the Orange Bowl restaurant at about 1 p.m. They were talking to a middle-aged man who was dressed in a brown suit. The unidentified man was carrying a briefcase that contained a tape recorder. Other children were talking into a microphone that he was holding. Jay Lyon said that he saw his sisters inside the restaurant at about 2 p.m. eating pizza. A friend reported that the girls were heading west down Drum Avenue near Devon Street between 2:30 p.m. and 3 p.m., which was the last time anyone saw them. The police decided that the unknown man to whom the sisters were talking in front of the restaurant that afternoon was a prime suspect in their disappearance. A police artist created a sketch of him based on the information that investigators had received, but he was never found. They also circulated photos and descriptions of Katherine and Sheila, who both had blonde hair and blue eyes. Sheila also wore glasses. For the next 3 weeks, John Lyon did not leave his house. Members of the couple's extended family arrived to help, including John's mother, Mary's mother, 2 sisters, and a cousin. They looked after the family shopping, cooking, and laundry. Meanwhile, police and neighbors combed the Kensington Heights area, checking the woods, ponds, storm sewers, basements, and storage areas. They conducted an aerial search using planes, and scuba divers searched the water. Members of the National Guard and Montgomery County Police searched 2 square miles of parkland in search of the girls, but they never found a clue. Detectives interviewed sales clerks at the Wheaton Plaza, Lyon family and friends, and classmates of the 2 girls. Desperate for clues as to what had happened to their daughters, the Lyons turned to psychics, but to no avail. For nearly a month, police placed a wiretap on the Lyon family telephone in case a ransom call came in. They wanted to be able to trace it. Every tip and ransom call was investigated. On April 4, 1975, a man phoned the family claiming that he had kidnapped and was holding Sheila and Katherine. He demanded that John Lyon bring a briefcase containing $10,000 to a courthouse in Annapolis, Maryland, and leave it in a restroom. Although the money was left in the designated spot, the money was not claimed. The man later phoned back and insisted that he was not able to collect the money because police had surrounded the courthouse. He was told that before any money would be offered to him again, he would have to show evidence that he had the Lyon sisters in custody. He replied that he would get back in touch with the family, but they never heard from him again. The unidentified man was not the only one to make a phone call to the family in the weeks after the girls' disappearance trying to extort money, but it was the most serious. A few days later, a man in Manassas, Virginia, claimed that at about 7:30 a.m. on April 7, 1975, he saw 2 girls who looked like Sheila and Katherine in the back of a 1968 beige Ford station wagon. The girls were bound and gagged in the moving car. The witness said that the station wagon's driver resembled the police sketch of the man who had been talking to children outside the Orange Bowl restaurant the day that the Lyon girls went missing. Lloyd Welch reported seeing the girls and a man to a mall guard 1 week after the disappearance. Lloyd Welch provided his own version of events a week after the disappearance. On the same day that newspapers printed a description of the conservatively dressed man carrying a briefcase with audio cassette recorder and holding a microphone, Lloyd Welch returned to Wheaton Plaza Mall and told a security guard he had evidence for the case. He said he had seen a man with a tape recorder talking to 2 girls and later, forcing the girls into a car, according to court records. Montgomery County investigators were summoned to the mall and took Welch to a nearby police station to interview him. They gave him a polygraph test. When informed that he had failed it, he admitted he had provided false information about witnessing the abduction and was released by police, according to documents in the case. A 1-page report was typed up and placed on top of the transcript of the interview, with the word lied written on top. For more than 38 years thereafter, information about Welch's possible involvement in the case was accessible only via a search of police records. The witness claimed that he began following the driver, but that the man ran through a red light and raced west along Route 234, towards Interstate 66, in Virginia. The witness said the station wagon had a Maryland license plate that was bent on one side. It bore the possible combination of letters and numbers DMT6***. At the time, this combination was issued in the Maryland areas of Cumberland, Hagerstown, and Baltimore. The story was investigated but led to a dead end. There were no vehicles with matching plates. Sheila and Katherine Lyon had vanished without a trace. In August 1975, Mary Lyon told the Los Angeles Times how she managed to cope with the disappearance of her daughters. "The big thing is that we still have our 2 boys," she explained. "You're forced back into living when you have other children who have to be fed, clothed and washed. They need attention too, more than ever before." The case remained dormant for the next 7 years. Then in April 1982, investigators searched the yard of a house that once belonged to Raymond Rudolph Molesky Sr. for clues connected to the Lyon sisters. The Suitland, Maryland, resident had murdered his wife and teenage son and wounded his younger son in November 1977 after an argument in the family home. In 1978, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison in connection with the double murder. Molesky claimed that he had some knowledge of the disappearance of the two sisters and would share information in exchange for better prison conditions for himself, but the search came up empty. Nearly 5 years later, police thought that they might have a suspect in the case. On January 22, 1987, Fred Howard Coffey Jr., 41, was sentenced to 50 years behind bars for 9 counts of molesting children in North Carolina. 2 days later, he was charged with kidnapping and killing 10-year-old Amanda Marie Ray on July 18, 1979. He had lived mere blocks from her in North Carolina. Her bruised and battered body had been found in a wooded area near a lake shortly after her murder. Coffey was twice sentenced to death, but it was later commuted to life in prison on July 21, 1995. He was also suspected of killing 5-year-old Neely Smith, who lived in the same apartment complex as Ray and disappeared on February 18, 1981, but to date he has not been charged in connection with that murder. Police thought there might be a link with the disappearance of the Lyon sisters because Coffey bore a striking resemblance to the man who had been seen with the girls outside the Orange Bowl restaurant in 1975. Coffey had also started working at a company in Silver Spring, Maryland, just a month after Kate and Sheila vanished. In March 1987, police began to consider him a suspect in that long-dormant case, but investigators were unable to find evidence connecting him to that case. Although the story has vanished from newspaper headlines, the case remains open with the Montgomery County Police Department. The girls' disappearance had a profound impact on the suburban communities of Washington, D.C. Parents became aware of the potential for child abductions and started to keep a closer eye on their children. It also profoundly affected the lives of the Lyon family. In 1992, John Lyon joined the Montgomery County Victim Assistance and Sexual Assault Program as a victim assistant to help other victims of crime. Jay Lyon, who was 15 years old when his sisters disappeared, became a homicide detective with the Montgomery County Police. In a local cemetery, a stone marker with the girls' names and birth dates is a reminder of the day that a community lost its innocence. Every March, Kuster thinks about Kate and Sheila Lyon, who disappeared only days after her own daughter Judy was born. Update. Over the years, many detectives worked on the Lyon girls' cold case. However, many had retired by 2013. Sergeant Chris Hamrock, after years of reviewing every detail of the case, ran across Lloyd Welch's statement. He had not read it previously. Critically, he also noticed that the mugshot of Welch roughly matched the police sketch created some 38 years ago. From the details in the file, Hamrock thought that at minimum Welch had witnessed the crime, because he had described the limp of Ray Molesky, and Hamrock still had not ruled out Molesky. However, Hamrock had also learned that Welch had since been convicted of child molestation. Detectives began working from this new angle, and after doing background work, planned an interview strategy. On October 16, 2013, they had their first interview with Welch. They had feared that Welch would not speak with them. However, on the first day of that interview, Welch spoke with them for many hours. Throughout this long interrogation process, Welch inadvertently revealed the truths of the crime hidden in his elaborate frameworks of lies to Detective Dan Davis. Welch's cousin, Henry Parker, told detectives in December 2014 that in 1975 he met Welch at a property on Taylor's Mountain Road, in Thaxton, Virginia. Parker said he helped remove 2 Army-style duffel bags from Welch's vehicle. Each bag weighed about 60 or 70 pounds and smelled like death, according to a search warrant affidavit, which was filed and sealed in January 2015. Moreover, Parker said the bags had been covered in red stains. Without knowing their contents, Parker threw the bags into a fire. In February 2014, Welch was openly named as a person of interest in the case. Police said Welch, who was 18 years old in 1975, and has since been convicted of rapes in 3 other states, had been seen paying attention to the sisters. A new lead was discovered as of September 20, 2014. The police searched the woods of Thaxton, Virginia, and entered a house in Hyattsville, Maryland, seizing several items. The home was that of Welch's parents, and he had lived in the basement. Although the evidence was too degraded to trace any DNA, one room of the basement had significant evidence of blood. One of the detectives used the word slaughtered to describe the scene. Over a year later, in July 2015, Welch, then serving a lengthy sentence in Delaware on a child molestation conviction, was indicted on first-degree felony murder for his alleged involvement in the deaths of Katherine and Sheila Lyon. He was also charged with abduction with intent to defile. The location of any remains of the girls' bodies is still unknown. Had Welch been brought to trial without the girls' bodies entered into evidence, it would have been the longest time to have elapsed between a murder and a trial in a bodiless murder conviction. Ultimately, in September 2017, Welch pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder for the abduction and killing of Katherine and Sheila Lyon in 1975. He received 2 48-year sentences for the 2 counts of first-degree felony murder he was facing. The sentences will be served concurrently.